Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today is my guest, Sajad Zalzala. Did I do it? Was that
Yes,
good?
yes,
All
very
right.
good.
I
Yes,
got
yeah,
it.
there we
I
go.
got it. So welcome, Sajad. And I'm excited that you're here because I think you have a cool, unique story. And it's interesting how we met and you have started to do infinite banking. And I always love when everybody breaks away, but being a doctor and your background, I really think that this is a cool this is a cool episode that we can talk about some different things than maybe I normally talk about, since a lot of my guests aren't doctors. So I guess I gave it away that you're a doctor, but why don't you give everybody your background, Sajad?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much for having me on this show, and thanks for introducing me to infinite banking and all the other cool things that you've got going on. I started my career in the computer science field back in the late '90s. Computers were kind of all the rage for young people. But I found myself kind of gravitating more towards helping people rather than fixing computers. And then I had gone on kind of a religious pilgrimage when I was young, and that kind of made me change my mind about being on this path of computer science rather than medicine. So when I returned, I kind of plotted out a course to go to medical school. Actually, I almost dropped out of medical school my first year. It was harder than I thought. I breezed through like high school and undergraduate, so medical school was a lot more challenging, and I wasn't ready for the challenge at the time. Plus, I kind of became disenfranchised with medicine, conventional medicine, because it focuses so much on treating symptoms and being, very reactive rather than proactive with medicine. So actually I almost dropped out, but just as luck would have it, I ran across a book called Fantastic Voyage: Live Long Enough to Live Forever, written by Ray Kurzweil and Terry Grossman. Talked about how eventually we might be able to upload our brains to a computer, maybe 50 years, 100 years from now. But people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they're not going to make it. Their brain's just not going to be healthy enough. So the book was all about how do you keep your body and your brain healthy enough until we can make that transition, if we ever get to that point. So that was the first time I really heard anybody in the medical field or anybody in any field talk about being proactive about your health and trying to treat the underlying causes of diseases, rather than being kind of like waiting for a disease and then slapping on a diagnosis and then treating with a pill or a surgery. So that kind of reinvigorated my interest in medicine, got me back into, kept me from dropping out, got me back into medical school, and sparked my interest in a field of medicine called functional medicine. Basically, just like I said, trying to find the underlying cause of disease. Why are people sick, and how do you treat the underlying cause? And then by extension of that is what's called longevity medicine, kind of a field where you help people live longer and healthier by preventing diseases of aging. And it's thought that the premature aging or the aging process is kind of the underlying cause for pretty much everything that goes wrong with the body as you get older.
Wow, you said a lot of cool things right there. A lot of things that I'm interested in because, I'm 57 and I kid around and I say, what I call 57, Sajad, is halfway. And I've been saying that for like 10 years though. But Dan Sullivan, who's strategic coach, he's up in Canada. He's all over the world, but he does this life extension thing. And what he says, how long do you think you're going to live? Right. And then he says, if the last so many years of your life, what would they look like if they were just perfect? Like you were functioning the way that you want to function. So a lot of people say 100 or something, right? And then, okay, the last 10 years of your life, you're golfing, you're fishing, you're boating, whatever the things that you like to do, and your body feels good. And so he creates this vision of you feeling really good. Then he says, okay, if you felt like that, how much longer would you want to live past 100? And normally I think the average is like 15 years past that, right? So I think that that's kind of cool. But I think this functional medicine, and I've heard that term more and more and more, and friends. And I think what we do in infinite banking, because it's different than mainstream, so people have a different mindset than mainstream people. And so I think that they're always looking for that. So I'll give you like one example is I go to this doctor. He's like 75 years old. If he saw him, he looks like he's 50. Okay. And he's up in Sarasota, and he's all about, it's called the Rejuvenation Clinic, right? It's about keeping you young. And I remember like asking him, a friend of mine was taking metformin because they said metformin is kind of like this anti-aging drug. And he said, here's all the benefits of it. And I said, well, why wouldn't I take it? What are the side effects? Well, some people get this or that. I'm like, I would like to try that. But like, I think that instead of taking a drug to make us, like you said, okay, you have high blood pressure, here's the drug for that, I've noticed, like I have high blood pressure. I've noticed that I've worked out a lot in the last year. My blood pressure is a lot more under control, and I'm down to like only one medicine instead of two. And my goal is to get it to where it's zero, right? But I really think that that's cool. And I love that you said something again. You said I plotted out a path to go to medical school. So many people in their lives, they don't plan, they don't like draw it out, right? We were talking earlier, I'm out of my house right now. My house is being repaired from Hurricane Ian. I know what 90 days from now looks like. 90 days from now, I'm in my house. I've upgraded a lot of things because I'm like, Ian is not going to win. I'm going to upgrade my TV. I'm upgrading my refrigerator. I'm upgrading different things in my house just so I can have an abundant mindset about this recovery rather than a scarcity mindset. So you plotting it out, though, when it got hard, you still had the plan, right? I think that's cool. And that's probably a lot that tells me a lot about your personality, that you plan something, you have a goal, and you go get it. Excuse me. There was a study done that there's only 3% of the people in the world that have goals, and like out of those 3%, like only 10% of those actually write them down or something. Some crazy number like that, right? So I think that's really cool. So the functional medicine thing, tell us, like, what do you do now?
Yeah, so about 3 years. So I guess let me back up. So I finished medical school. I chose family medicine as a specialty because it gave me the most well-rounded training without taking too long. There's only a 3-year residency program. You hear about people, spending 10 years in residency if they want to do like neurosurgery or something, which is on top of 4 years of medical school and 4 years of undergrad. So, some of these doctors, by the time they finish their training, they're like 40, Anyway, so I started out just doing what's called primary care, just being a family doctor for, in a clinic. I started my own clinic. I didn't want to be anybody's like employee. So I started my own clinic, and I took care of patients for a while. While I was kind of learning, kind of brushing up on my skills to do functional medicine. Doing functional medicine can be challenging from a business perspective, because insurance companies never pay you enough, reimburse you enough to do functional medicine, because they want you to see a patient every 15 minutes, and they'll only pay you to see a patient every 15 minutes. Whereas like functional medicine requires usually, not half an hour, minimum to actually, see patients. So it's a lot of doctors who do functional medicine, they kind of operate outside the insurance, realm. But it's very difficult, kind of for a new doctor. I was out of residency. I was married. I had a little, I had a son, and mortgage, things like that. So I had to kind of like have a conventional clinic first, while I was kind of getting my feet wet with the functional medicine aspect. And when I was ready, I kind of made the change. So about 3 years ago, I launched an online clinic, a telemedicine clinic. I got into telemedicine about 5 years ago, and before the pandemic made telemedicine cool and acceptable.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to kind of like merge kind of my telemedicine experience with my love of longevity and functional medicine, and created an online clinic dedicated to help people live longer and healthier.
That's that's really cool. You know what's funny about you saying 5 years ago at Create Tailwind, I was living in South Dakota part of the year, and I really liked just having that peace and everything of South Dakota. So I said, well, there's not enough people here to go show infinite banking to just in South Dakota, and I could do these speaking engagements and things like that, but I had to travel, maybe places I didn't really want to travel to. And so I started using online meetings back then. And everybody, I remember people in my own firm were like, they thought I was crazy. People are never going to do business with you over a computer. And I said, well, why not? I mean, I think I can be more effective. I've got better tools to draw and show you stuff than if you're sitting here next to me. I mean, and it was the best thing that we ever did. And then the pandemic just made everybody accept it. And so I actually really appreciate telemedicine because I'm busy. Even if I got to drive 15 minutes to the doctor, sit there for 20 minutes, 15 minutes back, and I got 15 minutes with the doctor, like you said, I still, it's
that's half your day. Yeah. You half your business day is gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I don't really need to see my doctor in person. I mean, I just need the information. I need them to see me if they need to see me in person, or if I need to go in and get some kind of test or something, then I'm cool with that. But longevity, like when Tony Robbins talks about longevity a lot, and I don't know if he's on the right path or not the right path. And he talks about these AMPK. I don't even know what that is, but I just know those letters. But he talks about these different things, and I always wonder. Well, I'm not going to take my medical advice from Tony Robbins. Sorry, Tony, but he listens all the time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to take my medical advice from Tony Robbins. Sorry, just like I'm not going to take my financial advice from him. But the longevity thing is really interesting. If somebody wants to learn about longevity or they want to learn about your clinic, how can they find that clinic?
Yeah, the clinic is called Ageless RX, agelessrx.com. So you can go on our website. We have a lot of resources for people, and then we offer access to some longevity therapies, and we're building our portfolio, so to speak, on our services, and to offer better and better services for people to live longer and healthier.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I would encourage everybody to do that, because I don't care if you're 20 or if you're 70, I mean, longevity, it's funny when you have more money, you want to live longer. Right. And if you're just, and that's kind of the old system of retirement. And again, doctors are trained. You go to school, like you said, up to 17, 18 years, could be 17, 18 years total. Right. And not one business class, not one investment class. And you're running a multi-million-dollar business in some cases. And so then people don't know what to do. They plug into this traditional, profit sharing plan and all of these things that are controlled by the government. And, how did you avoid that? You were an alternative doctor, which is cool. So you were probably looking for alternative, like, hey, I'm not buying into that crap either.
Right. Well, well, some of it was just luck because, I saw how, the stock market really struggled in 2008. And then, after 2008, it just seemed like we were on this bubble, and it seemed to have just crashed. This bubble burst. It burst a lot later than I thought. I thought we were gonna see it burst a long time ago. So I actually stayed out of the stock market because I was worried about kind of the overvaluation of stocks and kind of this big correction that we actually ended up finally getting to. So that's part of the reason why I kind of stayed out of stocks. That's one big reason. The other reason is the returns are not that great with stocks. I mean, even if you kind of, you buy into the whole thing about, long term, it's, 8-10%, annual return. I'm like, that's not that great, 8 to 10%, that's especially nowadays, that's barely above inflation, you know?
Right.
And then I looked into the whole like tax deferral, in terms of like our IRAs and 401ks and things like that. And that if, again, I crunched the numbers. I talked to several CPAs who kind of specialize in helping doctors kind of build up their nest egg. And when I challenged them on the numbers, I'm like, are you sure this is a good investment for me? I mean, when I crunched the numbers, it would have been like $1 million mistake to go with some of these plans, because I would, even with the tax savings, I'd still be losing like $1 million over my 20, 30 year until I could draw from some of these retirement accounts. So I just, it's all about, questioning everything, questioning all the assumptions, and then kind of like having that mindset of trying to do something non-traditional. And that's just kind of the way I've been, is always kind of seeking, questioning the status quo and seeking non-traditional ways of doing things. And so when some of my business ideas and telemedicine ideas started to take off, and I found myself a little bit of extra income, I looked around. I'm like, well, I don't want to put in the stock market. I tried to start a business, but that didn't really go very well. Pandemic and things like that. But what really worked for me was real estate investments have been working really well, and some of the alternative investments out there as well have been working out pretty good. So just that's that and diversification seem to be the key. Diversifying portfolio, not just real estate, other, buying into other businesses, buying into, we talked about cryptocurrency a little earlier. It might still be a good option, but again, but good for diversification perhaps. And so just like I said, it's all about like asking why. I mean that's why I like functional medicine so much. It's all about why. Why is somebody sick? Why does somebody have symptoms? Same thing, why do we have to put our money in the stock market? Why do we have to put our money in an IRA account? What else can we do? What else, what's out there hiding, that people don't want us to find out about, and kind of how can we kind of leverage that for our own good?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. It's what's funny is when I tell people, if I invest in 10 things, I'm not expecting all 10 things to be profitable or great or a home run, especially, right? I know that there's going to be one or two. So I have to invest in 10 so that I know that I'm going to have some winners in there to offset any of the ones that break even or struggle or that lose money. And I'm okay with that, because my alternative, it's always compared to what? And
yeah, exactly.
Putting money in, when people are getting their statements and it says, hey, you made 8 or 10% last year, that doesn't mean that's your CAGR, your compound annual growth rate. That just means that that's how much the price of that investment went up. Doesn't mean that's after expenses, fees, taxes, inflation, all of that. The other thing that you got to realize is that when you put money in a 401k, you're putting good dollars in, meaning dollars that are worth more today, to take bad dollars out, meaning dollars that are worth less, and that you don't even know what tax rate they're going to charge you. And then people go, I have a Roth. Okay. You're still having it controlled by the government. Tell me the last time that the government controlled your money and it came out in your favor. It doesn't. Right. And again, I'm not anti-government. Right. I mean, I think all governments are flawed, and all governments are they're parasites. They don't do anything. So they have to live off of their hosts. And guess who their hosts are? They're citizens. And we fall into that. So we have to learn. We have to educate ourselves. And everything that you've said, it's always consistent with educating yourself about something. And you got to take personal responsibility. Functional medicine, I would say you have to take personal responsibility, right? Hey, I need you to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I need you to eat right, move your body 5 times a week or whatever. Whatever again, I'm not the doctor, right?
Yeah,
but,
do the right test. Yeah, do the right test. Take the right supplements. Take the right medications if needed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, and that's why it's not for everybody, because many people are just perfectly happy showing up to the doctor, taking some pills and hoping everything will be okay. So functional medicine is not for those types of people, but neither is what you and I are talking about.
Yeah,
Today, in terms of the whole thing about financial freedom and
some people say, hey, I don't want to break out of the herd. Like, hey, if we're all going down together, with their 401k or the stock market or whatever. And to stand in that other line, I call that a convenient lie, right? We want to believe the convenient lie. What's hard is to stand up for the inconvenient truth. And the inconvenient truth, you're more alone, right?
Now you sound like Al Gore.
No, and not. I was about ready to say that. Not Al Gore's inconvenient truth, okay? But like just the real inconvenient truth, which is you have to do things differently. I mean, Nelson Nash used to always say the majority's never been right about anything. Right. And if you think about that, there's a lot of wisdom in those words that, I mean, if you keep doing common things, then you're going to get common results. And what doctors do, what I've seen, and I have a lot of friends that are doctors because of where I lived in South Dakota, there's no state income tax. They had their own surgery center, which is probably the best investment any of them ever made. And they worked in Iowa and Nebraska, when they had to, but they would save so much in state income tax doing a lot of stuff in South Dakota. Well, the thing that's funny is you think that you're making a lot of money, but your tax liability, just from a federal standpoint, is huge. And then you think of the time investment and the money that you invested, and you didn't make any money for so long, that there's a lost opportunity cost in there. And doctors need to make more money than they are making, not less, and not have insurance companies cut back more and more and more on reimbursements. Because I want the best and brightest when I do have a problem. I want the best and brightest going to medical school, not people that say, well, like maybe I'll just go to medical school,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny because there was an article several years back. I can't remember what magazine it was in, but it talked about how medical school is like $1 million mistake for a lot of smart individuals. And then they did the math. It's like, okay, you get your 4 years of undergrad, and then you do 4 years of medical school, and then God knows how many years of training, and then you start making good income. But if for people who are intelligent enough to make it through medical school, I mean, there's a lot of other things they could do instead. And so you actually, at the end of your career, you actually, if you compare yourself to like an investment banker or something like that, and especially if you're good at business and you're intelligent enough to kind of do that. So I tell people, especially young people, I'm like, if you want to make money, medicine's not the way to go. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're not, doctors are not starving. I mean, we make decent income, but it's not. It has to be more. It has to be about more than just money. I mean, for doctors who go into it just for money, I think they're doing society a disservice. They're doing themselves a disservice. But on the other hand, like you said, I mean, if we want the best and the brightest to go into medicine and take care of people, then we need to make sure they're well taken care of, and they live a comfortable life and they have decent income.
Yeah, I think we're forcing our doctors to act like business people more than we should now, because that's why, whatever percentage of the time you go to the doctor for a routine visit, you're going to see the physician assistant or nurse practitioner or somebody like that, because the doctor really can't afford, in a traditional practice, can't afford to spend 30 minutes with you, like you said, can't afford to do that, can't afford to, hey, I got stuffy nose, I want to get checked out. I can't afford to even see that person, right? I mean, in some cases, I live in Southwest Florida. You would think that everybody that wanted to be a doctor, this would be a great place for them to be a doctor. I don't think it's a very good place to practice medicine because of the competition. And I can tell you that incomes here are a lot different than incomes in the Midwest and South Dakota, Iowa. Those places are much better from a business standpoint. But wealth, as you know, is a lot more than money. And if you're making a lot of money but you hate what you're doing every single day, you're not wealthy. You're a highly paid slave. And freedom makes most people happy, right? And so money gives you choices give you freedom, but at what price, right? I mean, I love what I do. I don't kill myself working a ton of hours, and I still get to have the lifestyle that I want to have. And I'm very grateful for that. So I love the telemedicine thing. I'm definitely gonna look at, because I'm always thinking, maybe it's because I'm 57, right? That's about the age you start to think, okay, how do I keep feeling good for 30 more years or whatever many more years? And living in Florida, you really see people that are, let's say, in their mid 70s, somewhere in that range, is you see people that are very vibrant. They're having great lives. They've got plenty of money. They don't have the stress. They have all this stuff, right? They're abundant. And you see the people that are just, they got a scowl on their face. They're going to dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because they want to save $10 on their dinner. And they want to play golf in 5 or 6 hours because they don't have anything else to do. And they don't have that abundance, or they can't even play golf. They can't even walk. They can't even, and like, I don't want the last stages of my life to be that. I want to be active and vibrant till the very end.
Sure. I mean, but it's not just about that. I mean, it's also about, feeling like you're making a contribution to society.
Yeah.
I think that's what's missing in a lot of people's lives is, for so long, people work to make money. They work, money. And then, once they've kind of made it, there's like, this is not what I expected,
Right.
So I think, that's part of the reason why, I was talking to Drew about a nonprofit that I helped start a couple of years ago, called Enduring Harvest, if you don't mind me making a shameless plug about it.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, it's about, trying to make a difference in the world. There's a lot of poverty in the world, especially in developing countries. People are struggling just to meet basic necessities. So I'm like, well, while I'm trying to help, people live longer and healthier, in developed countries like, US, and we might, eventually expand to other developed countries. What about the opposite end? What about people who don't have jobs, who can't afford healthy food? So that's part of the reason why I felt compelled to start a nonprofit. I do that on my spare time, and we the mission is, or what we do is, we use what's called regenerative agriculture as a tool for economic development in developing countries. And I don't know if you know anything about farming or not, but just like conventional medicine is not good for most people's health, conventional agriculture is also not good for the health of humans, the health of the planet, the health of soil, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of merging kind of my favorite hobby, which is gardening, with kind of this desire to help people as well as desire to help the planet, and that's kind of why I helped start this nonprofit. Right now we've got a few pilot programs. One in Iraq, which is where my family's from. We have another one we're trying to get started in Indonesia. We have like an orphan support program in Afghanistan that we're supporting as well. And of course, eventually our goal is to make it self-sustaining, where these projects kind of pay for themselves. But until then, we could always use a little extra donation if anybody has any tax dollars they want to decrease their tax burden, and also try to make a difference. So if anybody's interested, they could reach out to me or go to our website or follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, what's the website again?
It's enduringharvest.org.
Enduringharvest.org. I love everything you just said there. I mean, it's very cool. I always think, I was adopted. I grew up in foster care, and I always think I was lucky enough to do that in the US. If I would have done it and like you said, in some of these countries, my life would be completely different. And I love helping other, I haven't traveled. I have a friend, business partner, Bob Burnett. He's traveled all over the world. I mean, he's traveled a lot, and that's another thing I want to do that's why I need longevity, is because I'm starting late in my life of travel. But I think that it's so cool when you see these other cultures, but you also, when you see other cultures, you see other needs in these countries, and you see some things that you're thinking, oh my gosh, like we really need to help these people. These people need to have a chance. And, we only get a very short time on this earth. And so the more that we can help other people in whatever capacity. So I would encourage everybody to check that out. And we'd love to help you raise more money for that cause too. So that's really cool. So you said that your family was from Iraq. Mm-hmm. Were you born in Iraq, or were you born in the U.S. or?
I was supposed to be born in the U.S., but my parents came back in the 70s on a kind of a government sponsored scholarship. Back in the 60s and 70s, the Iraqi government would send students all over the world, America, Europe. They'd study and then they'd come back and kind of use their degrees in Iraq. That all changed in the 80s with the war between Iraq and Iran, and so I was born on my parents' last trip to Iraq, because they would go every summer as part of their scholarship.
Yeah.
And so I was born on that very last trip that my parents made, and then I was born there, but I never lived there because I came to the U.S. My parents came back to the U.S. when I was like 4 months old.
Wow.
And I've kind of been here ever since. But my wife's from there, and her parents live there. She usually takes the kids and go visits her parents, over the summer, and I try to go when I can. And now that I have a project going on there, the pilot farm for Enduring Harvest over there, it's even more reason to kind of go there and have that connection with my homeland, so to speak.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Obviously your parents taught you a lot of great principles. I mean, you don't have the drive that you have, and the kind of the skills, again, to say I'm going to plot out how I'm going to get through medical school and have the confidence to do a lot of that stuff. I'm sure your parents had a lot to do with developing that in you. So that's cool that they got to come over in that program. And then Iraq in the 70s and 80s and 60s had to be, or 60s and 70s had to be a lot different than it is today. But I always think about countries, and I think, what would have, I'm sure there are parts, I mean, like, because you're letting your wife and kids go there. So our view of Iraq is what we see on the news, right? And I'm sure it's got to be completely different in everyday life, because guess what? Even in the United States, when they have all the protests and everything, I mean, that's like a tiny little piece of what's really happening out there. But what's your favorite thing about Iraq? Just something that people wouldn't know.
Well, I mean, I go there. I blend in when I go there. I speak the language semi-fluently,
Yeah.
And like I said, I was born there. I think my favorite thing is the history there. I mean, Baghdad itself is, it's built 1,000 years ago. A lot of ancient buildings. A lot of events. 1,000 years ago. I mean, Baghdad was literally like the center of the world. I mean, with the Abbasid Empire and things like that. At the time. And so there's a lot of rich history there, but other, Iraq is a cradle of civilizations. You had, the Prophet Abraham was born and lived in the south of Iraq, and there's a city there that still, you can go visit and see the ruins of the city where he lived, and there's so many historical figures that kind of either live there or were born there. Or pass through at some point or another. So it's just such a rich history in the country, in the area in general, and I think it's not, we read about it. I'm sure, if you took the same history classes that I took, I mean, there's a chapter of, Mesopotamia and ancient
Yeah.
Iraq in all elementary and high school books. But it's one thing to kind of read in a book and, see these ancient tablets and things like that. And it's another thing altogether to kind of see it, see it in person, and just kind of experience it. So I think just that connection with our past is really, really profound, I feel.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I have a friend who grew up in Israel, and his parents were missionaries, and he has these pots that he got. Now it's like in the same valley that David fought Goliath. Like I can't remember where that's at, but like I'm like, wait a minute, like these pots are thousands of years old or something, and like as a kid he found, so that kind of blows my mind growing up in Los Angeles where, the I'm not sure I mean, I guess we had the La Brea tar pits, but I don't think you're going to go try to find any relics there or anything. But it's that I think that's cool, the history, and I love history, so I think it's funny when sometimes people in the United States think that our society is gonna be, is never gonna fall, and you look at all the reasons that all these great societies have fallen in the past, and part of it is their currency became worth nothing. The Roman Empire, they couldn't get the Roman soldiers to fight for them anymore because their currency that was what they were paying them wasn't worth anything. So, right. That's, and again, I'm not saying that's the only thing, but I love that just from and from a money standpoint, and you watch how cultures used money and what money really is in an exchange, and it helps you understand what it is in today's world. So I think that's really cool. And I'll have to find out from you what's a good book to read about because I love to read, and I would love to learn more about something I don't know about. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because that kind of ties in with this whole investing thing. My focus now, I've got most of my investments here in the States, but now I'm trying to diversify outside, outside of the States. You never know. I mean, in case one day this, America is no longer hospitable for people who weren't born here, for example, or if it's just, no longer a very favorable place to live. I mean, I'm hoping. I'm always, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So,
yeah,
by diversifying some of my investments, kind of like, outside of the U.S., especially when it comes to farming. Farming is one of the new things I'm trying to get into from an investment perspective that, that has some attractiveness to it, I think. But again, I mean, that goes back to what we're talking about in terms of thinking outside of the box, not putting all your eggs in one basket, doing 10 investments and kind of expecting a couple of them to fail, kind of naturally. It's all about mindset and, what you want to do and what you want to accomplish in this life.
There's a great documentary it's so great that I can't remember the name of it, but it's talking about the difference between soil and dirt and how farming, the traditional way of farming, is really ruining the soil, and that if you take care of the soil, you're so much more profitable. Like it's just so that sustainable farming is fascinating too. So I love that, everything that you said. I mean, you're talking about functional medicine and focusing on wellness, not on just treating like, hey, you're just gonna eat McDonald's every day, and then, hey, when you need and then we'll get you a cardiologist when you need one. And then the farming stuff and the giving back. I mean, what you're doing definitely ties into the book, The Go-Giver, and just the 5 principles of stratospheric success, or the 5 stratospheric laws of success. Thinking of books put you on the spot. So if God came down from heaven and said you could only retain the knowledge that you've gotten from one book, what would that book be?
Oh boy, that's a difficult question to ask, because usually when I read books, they're for specific purposes, whether it's a specific health topic or like, a specific way of thinking about things. I probably be more comfortable, what's you asked me earlier what's the most interesting book I've read over the last year.
Yeah.
There's a book called "You Are the Placebo" by Joe Dispenza, I believe his name
Yeah,
is. Yeah, I don't know if you've read it or not.
I haven't read that book, but I know Joe Dispenza. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he talks about, in medicine, the placebo effect is where like you give somebody an empty pill, like basically a sugar pill, and you say, hey, this is going to do such and such for you. And you believe it to the point where, your body actually changes as a result of believing that this pill is good for you. And so the idea is, hey, you don't need somebody to give you a pill and say this is good for you. The idea is like you are the placebo. You can make your own placebo effect. It basically talks about how you can create your own reality, drive your own destiny, and how your thoughts change your body. I mean, there's a lot of people kind of disconnect the neck from the rest of the body,
Yeah,
the
right.
neck up from the neck down, but it's very much connected, and that's why again that's why the placebo effect is so powerful, because you'll actually get physiological responses. You'll get changes in your body from what you believe. So that's why I like the book so much, because it talked about this whole thing about kind of self-empowerment, and using this placebo effect in everyday life to kind of enhance your life, enhance your thought processes, and just live a better life overall.
I love that, because I think mindset, and I think you can, I don't know, people say manifest, but I don't know if that's the right term or whatever. But Dispenza, I mean, I've read a couple of his books, and I've watched some stuff from online, and some people, it's kind of like how we end our show, and we're going to end our show here in a minute on The Strangest Secret. But the strangest secret is what you think about is what you're going to get. And so if you think about health, abundance, wealth, happiness, that's what you're going to get. And if you think about being miserable, scarcity, illness, that's what you're going to get, right? Part of it is, if you're focused on these other things, you're going to do the things that are necessary to get it. But also, you can't think, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to be sick, and be healthy. That's not how our brains or our bodies work, right?
So, because you will get sick. If you think you're going to be sick, you will get sick. It's good. It'll come true. Your body will make it happen.
So when I'm around, I was working out this morning, and I had two people that my trainer and the guy I work out with, Rich Spencer, they both said, I'm not feeling good. I'm this. And you know what I said to myself? I'm not getting sick. I don't feel sick. I'm not going to get sick. I don't care what you guys have. I don't care if you got the flu. I don't care if you got COVID. I'm not getting sick. So, I mean, another thing, for those people in your audience who are spiritual, when you pray to whoever you pray to, whether it's the universe or to God or Allah, whoever it is, you have to be prepared for like what you pray for, or what you ask for. Yeah. You can't just, oh God, give me $1 million, and then expect a suitcase of money to fall. It's like, oh God, give me wealth, but then you have to be receptive to the to the signs and to the opportunities that are open in front of you. And a lot of people don't do that. They might pray, or they might give charity or whatever, and then they kind of ask for something, but then then opportunities open up and they just don't realize it. It's just sometimes it's like literally right in front of their face, and they just are too scared to act, or they just don't know any better. So that's I think the biggest takeaway I'd give to anybody is, like, if you're gonna if you are a spiritual person and you do kind of like make that prayer or put it out in the universe, however your spiritual system works, you have to be prepared to receive. And I think that's the biggest stumbling block for a lot of people. And I think too is when you do that, you can't pray, hey, I want to be a billionaire because I just want to be flying around on my own jet and doing this and this and this. Right. If you say, hey, I want to be a billionaire because then I can go impact millions of people or billions of people in the world and feed them and do this and this and this and this and use that platform. If you have if you have to have that kind of vision, and that you got to have that in your heart, because again, that's just how the world works. That's how the universe works. And if we're helping other people, it's funny. It just seems like money flows in. If you're doing it for selfish reasons, money dries up. And so just that's been my experience. But
Right.
Sajad, you have so much stuff going on that I could probably talk to you forever. And I know my podcast people are going to be like, you went way too long. And so, so let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here, and such an interesting person. And I'm glad that we got to know each other a little bit better as well, just recording this. And so thank you so much for being here.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.